Hello, everyone. So, before the Supergirl movie comes out, I just wanted to do a review of the history of the character known as Supergirl. Now, while Supergirl is mostly known as being Superman's cousin, the character goes through many different changes, and the role of Supergirl is had by different characters. Some aren't even human, and some are, I want to say, a different version of an identity that was associated with Kara Zor-El. So yeah, this character known as Supergirl, it just a lot happens with the characters that use the name of Supergirl. Because a woman of tomorrow, that's not very. It's just a revenge story. Okay, it's about Supergirl meets a girl whose dad gets murdered. They get the guy that did the murder. Get the guy. The guy gets got. But with the character and the history of Supergirl, I just wanted to give an overview because there's so much to it, and it's much more complex than Supergirl simply being Superman's cousin. So yeah, I'll start simply in the Silver Age. Kara Zor-El is introduced. She is the cousin of Superman. She is Kryptonian. She has powers like Superman. And her secret identity is Linda Danvers. Now, I want you to remember Linda Danvers because Linda comes up later, and let me tell you, things, like I said, how it gets complicated, they get really crazy and really complicated when it comes to Linda Danvers. And I also wanted to mention Comet, who, this is crazy as it sounds, is Supergirl's unicorn companion. And Comet also comes up later. And things also get crazy and complicated when it comes to Comet. So yeah, Kara Zor-El in the Silver Age goes on different adventures, using her superpowers. She goes on adventures with the Legion of Superheroes, goes on different adventures. So through the Silver Age and even into the Bronze Age. So in 1985, during the Crisis on Infinite Earths events, Supergirl ends up dying in a battle with the Anti-Monitor. Okay, this was done from the DC Comics editorial. They felt like that there were too many Kryptonians, and they wanted to make Superman the last Kryptonian again, just as the character was originally conceived to be. But due to the iconic nature of Supergirl and other Kryptonians, this change would not last. But they tried to bypass Supergirl's Kryptonian heritage by making Supergirl, but not a Krypto. You'll see as I'm going to briefly explain. And here where it gets complicated. So Kara, even though she dies, she does make rare appearance as a spirit. So yeah, even though Kara did die in a crisis, her spirit does make appearances on rare occasions, even though Supergirl is physically dead. But yeah, here goes the complicated part. So post-crisis, after the Crisis on Infinite Earths, Supergirl is a role that is had by a being called Matrix. Now, Matrix is an artificial life form that was created by the Lex Luthor from another universe, and Matrix was made to fight the evil Kryptonians who were Phantom Zone criminals of Lex Luthor's universe. So yeah, Matrix's real form is just this shape-shifting mass, and Matrix adopts the likeness and has, many similar powers to a Kryptonian, including some that Kryptonians don't have, such as shape-shifting and invisibility. So, after the threat of the Phantom Zone criminals are, the criminals are beaten, Supergirl comes into the main New Earth Prime universe, and she gets into a relationship with the Lex Luthor of the New Earth, but then she discovers his insidious nature, that he was making clones of her and doing other shady things. So Supergirl confronts him and breaks up with him. And things get even crazier because, Supergirl, or Matrix as Supergirl, starts to have identity crisis. She's, because she's an artificial life form, doesn't really have a truly solid sense of self. Like, she even impersonates Superman one time. But then later on, after she resolves some of her issues, she meets Linda Danvers. Now, in this post-crisis universe, Linda Danvers is her own person. She is not Supergirl's secret identity. So Linda Danvers, falls, into a bad crowd. She gets into this relationship with a guy named Buzz, and Buzz is part of some demonic cult, and he's being influenced by demonic forces. So Buzz tries to kill Linda Danvers as Supergirl comes in and tries to save Linda, and Linda and Supergirl end up uniting. And yeah, Linda and Supergirl, they become one and they unite. And there's an issue because, there's clashes in the psyches and the personalities. They have Linda and Supergirl have personal issues with themselves and issues with each other. And there's, an often conflict of control, where, who should be the dominant personality. And then when they unite, the Matrix loses most of her shape-shifting powers, except her ability to turn back from being Matrix Supergirl into Linda Danvers. And later, the discovery is made that Matrix Supergirl is actually an Earth Angel, and she became an Earth Angel as a result of uniting with Linda Danvers. And there's other Earth Angels, like there's one named Blythe, and then there's Comet, who I mentioned before. Comet as Supergirl's unicorn companion. Well, in the post-crisis, Comet is a Earth Angel of Love, who is the result of the uniting of a male and a female. So Supergirl, Matrix, and she gets into a battle. Her and the other Earth Angels get into a battle with a evil being named the Carnivore, who was considered the first vampire. So yeah, they get into an epic battle, and Carnivore winds up getting defeated, but Matrix seemingly perishes, and it's a sacrifice in her battle, in which the Carnivore is vanquished. So Linda herself becomes Supergirl, cause while it becomes discovered that Matrix is actually still alive, and Linda Danvers is only Linda Danvers is Supergirl, but she doesn't have the full powers as when she was united as Supergirl with Matrix. So yeah, Matrix is just Supergirl. I mean, yeah, no, my bad. Linda Danvers is is just Supergirl for now. And this sounds crazy, but Linda as Supergirl ends up teaming up with Buzz, the guy who tried to kill her, and who caused Matrix to try to save her, which ended up fusing. So yeah, Buzz, Linda, and some other allies try to find Matrix, and they do end up finding Matrix, and they confront a being named Lilith, who is an evil being. Lilith has Matrix as the hostage, and a great battle ensues. you know I want to say, yeah, I'm saying that Lilith ends up being banished. She doesn't win in the end. And even though Matrix is found, Matrix does not, truly unite with Supergirl exactly in the same way. Matrix combined unites with Twilight, Twilight was a former foe turned ally. And Matrix, yeah, this new Matrix Twilight union restores Linda Danvers Supergirl's powers to, I want to say, the same levels of when Linda and Matrix were united. And then there's many happy returns in which the Kara Zor-El version of Supergirl is finally reintroduced into flesh. Okay, her rocket comes in. She's from another universe. Her and Linda Danvers wind up meeting. Things get a little rocky at first, but they form a bond. But then it gets found out that Kara being in this new universe causes instability that could threaten all of reality itself. So Linda tries to replace Kara and goes back to Kara's world where she meets Superman. They get into a relationship, which is kind of weird because for so long Supergirl was Superman's cousin, but you have this version of Supergirl who is not Superman's cousin pretending to be Superman's cousin. They get married, they have a child, but this can't last because Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, is supposed to, die in the battle against the Anti-Monitor, which I explained earlier in the Crisis event. So what ends up happening is that, things have to go back to the way they were. And Linda is sad and she kind of gives up being a superhero. But then, after that, there's a story arc with Supergirl, Kara Zor-El being introduced. It's Superman Batman comic, and it's the actual full-on reintroduction arc that truly brings Kara Zor-El back in the fold in DC Comics. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to tell you the history of Supergirl. Supergirl goes through a lot of changes from at first being Superman's cousin to being an artificial life form from another universe who is not Superman's cousin to uniting with a post-crisis version of the female who used to be Supergirl's secret identity, Linda Danvers, to being an Earth Angel, to Kara Zor-El finally being introduced. So yeah, I just wanted to go into this crazy, complicated history of Supergirl. So thank you all for watching. That's all for now.